Most photographers get a crucial part of editing completely wrong, and in this video, I'll show you exactly why, and more importantly, how to fix it. Knowing when to sharpen and when to denoise can make a huge difference in the final quality of your image. Later in the video, I'll share an important sharpening technique which helps create sharper detail. Let's take a look at this photograph and I'll walk you through my recommended workflow to get the best results. I'll cover raw workflows in both Lightroom and DxO Pure Raw, and I'll also show you what to do if you're exporting your raw file as a TIFF or JPEG for further editing in another application. Let's start with the raw workflow first. Most photographers would start the editing process right away. In this example, I'll drop the exposure a bit as the image is quite bright. I'll raise the blacks to soften out the dark contrast and then bring back some highlight contrast by increasing the whites. I'll drop the highlights just to darken some of those very bright areas on the subject. I want to then increase a bit of the saturation on the subject, so I'll create a subject mask and then increase the saturation and perhaps add a bit of clarity to offset the subject from the background. Assuming I'm happy with the edit, I'll adjust sharpening next. I'm going to increase sharpening to about 100, radius at about 1, and masking to about 40 or so. Next, I want to remove the noise from the photo. I'll click the denoise button to use Lightroom's AI denoise. A preview window will open showing our image. The big issue with this preview is that it includes all the edits we've already applied. But here's the problem. Lightroom performs denoising at the raw level, completely ignoring any of those edits. Let's cancel for a moment and exaggerate this to show you why it's an issue. I'll intentionally over-sharpen the image, cranking up the sharpening and radius, and setting masking to 0. Now let's go back into denoise and set the amount to 1. Once again, the preview window shows the edited version of the photo. See all of that sharpening? Now, if I increase the denoise slider to around 85, it does a great job at cleaning up the noise. But the problem is, since the preview includes all of that extreme sharpening, we're falsely judging the fine detail in the raw file, and the amount of 85 here is too high and not truly suitable for this image. Let's cancel the denoise and process the image in DxO Pure Raw 5 and look at how we preview the file. Notice how in Pure Raw, we are only seeing the actual raw file. No Lightroom edits are showing up here at all. This is a perfect scenario to truly judge the fine details in the raw image. Before I show you my recommended raw workflow and a big problem you must avoid, it's important to understand how Lightroom handles raw files. Lightroom doesn't bake any edits into a raw file. Everything you do is a virtual adjustment that sits on top of the original raw file. Think of it like baking a cake. The cake itself is your raw file, and the edits you apply in Lightroom are like icing on the top. The icing changes how the cake looks, but underneath, the actual baked cake stays the same. Similarly, Lightroom AI Denoise and DxO Pure Raw only look at the actual cake. They ignore the icing. They process the raw file itself and completely disregard any edits you've applied. When Lightroom AI Denoise or DxO Pure Raw creates the new DNG file after denoising, you can simply reapply the icing, your edits, to the new file. Lightroom does this automatically when using Lightroom AI Denoise, but Pure Raw, you'll need to manually copy the edits from the original raw file to the new DNG. Now, because Lightroom's edits are non-destructive and virtual, it doesn't actually matter when you apply sharpening or denoising if you stay in Lightroom. Whether you sharpen before or after denoising, the final output will be exactly the same. Nothing is permanently baked into the file. But there is a big problem with editing and sharpening before running denoise, regardless of applications used. As we've already discussed, editing your file before running AI Denoise in Lightroom makes it difficult to accurately judge the raw file in the denoise preview window, and it's best to avoid this. If you do apply edits before denoising in either Lightroom or DxO Pure Raw, you'll need to copy those edits back onto the new DNG file afterwards. This can lead to serious problems, especially if your edits include AI masks. When you copy AI masks to the new DNG file, Lightroom recalculates them based on the new file, which can result in masks that differ from the originals. This means your edits might not look the same, and the final result could shift in unintended ways. If you're working exclusively with raw files in Lightroom, I highly recommend doing all of your denoising first, before applying any edits or sharpening. This avoids the complications of copying settings to a new DNG file and ensures you can properly judge the detail in your raw image when using Lightroom's AI denoise. There's also a big bonus to denoising your images even at low ISOs. It can help you use a lower masking value in the sharpening panel, which means you can enhance more fine detail in important areas. I've denoised this version in DxO Pure Raw, and to edit this image, I used a specific system I developed called the Editing Vision system. This system is at the heart of my brand new photo editing course, designed not just to show you how to edit, but why. If you want to master wildlife photo editing, check out the link in the description. Let me show you the masking overlay comparison between the original RAW file and the denoised version. With the masking set to 40 on both images, you'll notice that the original RAW file applies much more sharpening to the background, where we don't want it. In contrast, the denoised version keeps the sharpening more focused on the subject, with far less spill into the background. To eliminate that unwanted background sharpening in the original file, I'd need to raise the masking to around 55 or 60, but doing that also removes sharpening from important areas in the lion's face and fur. So the benefit of using the denoised version is clear. It allows me to use a lower masking value while still sharpening more of the fine detail where it matters most. So what if you're planning to export your image, for example, as a TIFF or JPEG for further editing in another application? In that case, hold off on sharpening until your edit is 100% complete. The reason is simple. If you sharpen the image before applying other adjustments like contrast, clarity, or texture, those edits will amplify the sharpening effect, often leading to over-sharpened or unnatural looking results. To maintain control, it's best to sharpen only at the very end of your workflow. Getting these editing steps right is important, but the real damage often happens before you even open Lightroom. In this video, I cover the biggest wildlife photography mistakes even professional photographers still make.